Well, the left not just calling for criminal justice reform, they now want to defund the police. It comes after 2 NYPD officers were shot and another was stabbed last night while protecting against looting. This new push gaining support across the country, including from former Hillary Clinton campaign press secretary Brian Fallon. But is it warranted? Tucker Carlson challenging the narrative. Take a look.
Is our nation being ripped apart by a total and complete lie, a provable lie? Last year, the Post logged a total of 1,004 killings. Of the 802 shootings in which the race of the police officer and the suspect was noted, 371 of those killed were white, 236 were black. The vast majority were armed. Overall, there were a total of precisely 10 cases in the United States last year, according to the Washington Post, in which unarmed African Americans were fatally shot by the police. In 2 of those cases, in fully half, the officer was criminally charged. Is it possible that more of these officers should have been charged? Of course it's possible. Justice is not always served, that's for sure. But either way, this is a very small number in a country of 325 million people. This is not genocide. It's not even close to genocide. It is laughable to suggest it is. In fact, the number of police killings is dropping. No American should ever be mistreated by those in authority, much less killed.
So, Lawrence, is there a danger here in this narrative that all police should be defunded? Because as we know, when policing stops in crime-ridden communities, the people who suffer the most are those who have no defense against the criminals.
So let me push back a little bit, because I think this so often happens when we're having these debates. And this is all centered around the one term, systematic racism. So let's talk about this a little bit. Because we aren't on the ground, and I mean Republicans on the ground, we talked about this a little bit on the show. We are always on defense when it comes to the issues that the left talks about the black community. So for example, the issue is not just police shooting, it's about, you know, what happens on the ground in the police department. So with the Ferguson report, you saw that it was big government in there, and they were literally policing for profit. When you look at Minneapolis, you see in the police department where with the stops and the use of force, that when it comes to black Americans, it's a big problem there. So instead of people on the right saying, you know what, this is our plan. Like, for example, get rid of the unions and put our policies in there. When people say systematic racism, when it comes to the education system, instead of being on the ground and say, you know what, here's school choice. People should not have to go to failing schools just because they live in the zip code. When people say that it's not safe in our community, instead of going into the community like Maj Toure does, a Republican, and says, you know what, this is how you defend yourself. These are your rights. There is an answer for every single thing. But because conservatives on a local level, I'm not talking about the president's national policy, all right? Local level is how you get things done. We never have a response. So we go back and forth on who's a bigger racist and who's not.